Welcome back to Auxano, where we discuss our guests, causes of growth, and the causes of change. Today, I am with one of my closest friends. He's been extremely pivotal. Oh my gosh, extremely pivotal in my mental health and spiritual growth. Without him, I definitely would have been pretty lost in the sauce, for lack of better words. But without further ado, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Brenden Rivera. I do a lot of things, from photography to audio editing, video editing, kind of things in the multimedia realm. And occasionally, in order to continue doing that, I have to pick up side jobs I don't want to do as much. Like right now, I have like a side gig at UPS that I just picked up,
Nice.
it allows me to kind of still do the things that I want to do a little bit more. And it's just, I don't know, it's been dope, man. And to kind of see what you're doing now, and I've had discussions about, you're like pretty much in multimedia now, essentially, with this,
I
in
guess
a way.
so. I guess so, yeah.
So it's been dope having those discussions and seeing you in this field too, like a friend who's like also now in the media field.
Dabbling in it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm dabbling in it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, bro. I do want to give my flowers to you. And I don't think I've ever... I mean, I'm sure I've told it to you in passing, but it was because we had a conversation very late at night, and I remember I was still in the military at that point, and you were telling me, like, why not chase your dreams? And actually, it's been something that I've been using recurring on the show or when talking to even other people as guests, is this concept of mantra. So I definitely want to footnote that and come back to it, because even I've started coining it, for lack of better terms, where I tell people that conscious action done in repetition become the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And that is something that has followed me like a guiding light in a lot of things that I've been doing, because I was so afraid to start the podcast. I was so afraid to start the media company. I didn't want to leave this bubble of affirmation, and it was a conversation we had, the multiple conversations we've had that inspired me to definitely start. But even though we are super close, I still think that this game holds some value, and it is called Let's Get Deep.
Yeah.
So there is level 1, which is icebreaker, level 2, which is deep, and level 3, which is deeper. So even though we've talked quite a bit, I'm sure these questions will spawn some things where, like, I've still yet to ask you. So.
For sure. No, I'm so excited.
Yeah, bro. So without further ado, here's icebreaker.
Yeah.
So I recommend choosing one card out of the two and then reading it to the audience, but some people have just been answering them both.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll let you flow. My personal recommendation is to choose between the two.
So I do one of these. Do I read them both?
Yeah, you read them both and then you choose.
All right, let's see here. I like this one. What is your favorite thing to eat for breakfast? Here's the thing. I don't know if I love it, but I've grown to love it because it's what I can eat. I have a lot of dietary restrictions.
Yeah.
And so like a rice cake with some sort of healthy chocolate spread, maybe, or like a almond butter, some bananas on top, maybe some blueberries if it's not the bananas. I don't know. That's pretty much been my breakfast, like my go-to breakfast for years.
Wow.
Just the same thing, but
Does it have a name?
no,
It's just
just rice cakes, I guess.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, just buy like it's like a gluten-free meal. It's it's like a bread substitution in many ways. But yeah, just getting up in the morning, especially now that I'm married, sometimes I'll just wake up and my wife will just have a plate of Nutella-covered rice cakes or something, and I'm like, wow, God is good. It's a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With them rice cakes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, without further ado, level 2. Deep.
Level 2. Oh man. All right, here we go. All right. So I guess one of these are like a cooler question, but I don't know the answer to it. But so I guess I'll have to go. Anyways,
Give it a stab.
if something broke in your home, are you more likely to call someone for repairs or try to fix it yourself? I'm definitely the type to try to fix it.
Bob the Builder.
There's been times that's actually a detriment, I think. Like, I've made things worse because I try to fix it. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, I really I don't know how. To this day, I don't know how. But I really damaged one of my mother's toilets one time.
Toilets?
Toilets. And, like, I don't mean that in, like, I used the bathroom kind of way.
That's what I was thinking.
No, but, like, I was trying to fix it. And I made it worse. I don't know. To this day, I'm not really sure. I thought I fixed it. So I think that, you know, there's been a few of those occurrences, but usually through the years, I've gotten a lot better at little houseworky kind of things. When I was always good with woodwork, but when it came to like plumbing-ish things, I've always been very intimidated. Mainly because if you mess up, you probably cause more money in damages sometimes. But like other times, it's like, I don't know. There's just those times you have to run to Home Depot like 5 times in a day, and you're just losing it.
Yeah.
And you're just like, no, I'm gonna do this, because you know, more than now than ever, people charge a lot for home maintenance.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, home maintenance, man. Shout out to the people in home maintenance, cause making that guap, making that shmoney money, man.
Y'all goated, man.
Yeah,
Y'all goated.
yeah, legit.
For when Brenden destroys his toilets.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, bro.
Yeah, bro.
Moving on from
It's
toilet
such a
breaking.
funny sound clip.
Moving on from toilet breaking.
Yeah.
We got mental health, which is deeper.
Hopefully I don't get memed as like the toilet breaker now or something. I don't know. Am I allowed to answer both?
If you want to answer both, yeah, go.
I would love to answer both.
Go for it.
Have you ever felt or thought that you were boring all the time? All the time. Every day. I wonder, am I boring this person right now? I'm also pretty geeky. I'm pretty nerdy sometimes. I definitely know that I have bored some of my friends.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. Like, sometimes there's like have you ever been on like a tangent? I'm sure you have, of something you're really passionate about, and
You've sat through multiple of my tangents.
Yeah,
So.
but like sometimes if you're doing it to a person who's not really interested in what you're saying because of whatever it is,
Right,
you know,
right,
like
right.
I might be talking about space or something, and I'm just watching them mentally check out slowly, and I'm like, oh, okay.
What is this guy talking about?
Like I thought this was the most interesting thing. I'm not sure that I want to use the terminology I'm boring. Maybe they're the boring ones. You know?
Little Uno reverse.
Little Uno reverse. That's what I tell myself to feel better, I guess.
Okay.
Have you ever experienced an existential crisis? What would you call an existential crisis?
That's actually, that's pretty huge. I feel like you have.
Yeah.
Honestly. An existential crisis is, I think the textbook definition of existential crisis is a state of mental crisis.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like the true definition of what it is, because technically it's metaphysical. Like it's not gravity. Like it's just a state of being. So it's like, wow, like should I buy this Honda Civic or should I not?
Yeah.
Or like, should I fix this toilet or should I break it completely? So,
Not the toilet breaking.
I can't let it go.
The callback. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Never living this one down. But yeah,
It stays here.
Yeah.
It'll stay here.
It'll stay here.
But
it won't.
because it's going on the internet, it'll be immortalized
Yeah.
forever.
I was trying to find like it's gonna like move out like a movement joke because of the toilet breaking. I couldn't find out how to. Anyways, but I don't know, man.
Okay.
They shouldn't let us on here with kids. I if an existential crisis, if we're defining it as like, should I or shouldn't I not, then I have those every day.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too, honestly.
But if we're, if I don't know, I've sometimes, I don't know if this is correct, but I've sometimes heard that referred to as like, do I exist?
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like we can go into it where it's like,
Yeah.
on the conspiracy theories where it's like we're like in the Matrix.
We're in the
like
Matrix.
We're just like
Wake up, bro.
a mind or a body in a pod,
Yeah.
and like we're being nurtured by this like great system.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, if that's what floats your boat, then yeah, I guess that's what an existential crisis
So
is.
I don't really, I've never had that kind of existential crisis where I'm like, am I real? And maybe because I've actually watched so many podcasts of people talking about the nature of reality. I think that the word consciousness gets thrown around a lot in that conversation. I've not dealt with that too much. I think there's something very comforting about recall that allows me to not really have that problem if we're talking about like, do I exist?
Yeah.
Memories, photos. Now, people who really want to dive into that, they can. I find that it's not for me. I think that people who talk about it, it's an interesting subject to talk about. It's fun to talk about. I don't think I'm naturally going to be able to find some way to tap into the fourth dimension and see the coding or something. So even if, I also think my Christianity plays a large part in the reality that I haven't had a quote unquote existential crisis in that way. I think in leaning into my Christianity, I had an existential crisis about what it means to be a human being, a soul, a spirit,
Right.
these kinds of things, eternal existence and all that.
Yeah.
But and obviously, if we're talking about like, should I or should I not? Yeah, I think maybe it's healthy to have a good amount of those, and really check in with yourself every now and again, and like make sure you're making the best decisions, and so on and so forth.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
I'd agree. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to the first question I ask everybody.
Okay.
It is, when you were a kid, what did you want to do, or what did you want to be?
So there was two things that I wanted to do, and the first thing I ever wanted to do, ironically in a way, was be a musician. And then later on, I was like, music is lame. I want to play basketball. And I'm just watching like live NBA games, very inspiring. I was in Ohio when LeBron got drafted to the Cavs.
Just a regular day in Ohio.
Yeah, just another day in Ohio. The last memorable day in Ohio, right? No, I'm joking. The Ohio memes are very funny to me.
Me too.
Yeah?
Too. Yeah.
Just another average day in Ohio. But yeah, I was a Kobe guy, and then I realized I wasn't growing that tall.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you're fairly tall. I mean, you're not like NBA tall.
I'm not NBA tall, and even if I was, even if I was, had chased my dreams and like achieved it, I don't know. I didn't really want to go my whole quote unquote career being a defensive liability for a team. It just sounds lame. I'd rather play in a local rec or something. But as I got older, I started to prioritize music again once passion met like natural talent.
Yeah.
And I think that natural talent, what even is natural talent anyways? I think sometimes when you're around something so much while you're growing up, you naturally kind of, it's like if you have something in certain ingredients, seasonings, eventually you'll kind of take on that flavor. And I was a pastor's kid around music all the time. And long car rides where it's very normal to have like family worship culture on long drives and in living room sits. And my dad would be like, all right, now you go to this harmony. And I'm like, bro, I'm 5. What are you talking about? You know, but eventually you pick it up. And I didn't realize how valuable that was until I was like a little older, and I realized like, oh, being able to harmonize like this is a unique gift. It's not just something that all of my friends can do, or being able to pick up guitar easily because I understand the tonality of how my fingers are affecting these chord structures. So as it was kind of like that thing where passion meets talent meets purpose, and began to lean into it a little bit more, and still am to this day.
I wanted to tell people about you, and so that's the reason I have you on, you know?
Yeah.
I think, in my personal opinion, and I'm completely projecting here, I think it's still a waste. You've yet to like release like an album or a song on Spotify that I could listen to. I've listened to your music.
Yeah.
We've literally had jam sessions to where I'm just playing the guitar.
For sure.
I gave you a prompt about freaking ice cream.
Yeah.
And you like went ham on that freestyle for I think it was like 15 minutes straight.
Yeah.
I actually recorded it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
that's awesome.
I hope that one day when you're ready, or when when the stars align.
Yeah.
When you feel compelled by God, or whatever it is that gets the music out, that the world can hear it, because you have this the voice that you have is so buttery. It's like airy. It's like
I get buttery a lot. It's very funny because it's not like I put these words out. I get the same words everywhere. I get like velvet and butter a lot, and it's really funny to me.
That's what I think about, because like if one intensity is like gruff and like rugged, like a rugged sounding voice, and that sounds good. Yours is like the complete opposite.
That's so funny.
Where it's like it's butter. It's like the way you hit lines. So that's just me. That's just me, right?
Yeah.
And we can't wait to hear, man. We can't wait to hear.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
But what is life advice you'd give that young man now? Now that you're honing your crafts, you know, from what? Well, I mean, you're kind of going back to the that inner child's desire, really.
I am more now than ever, and especially after getting married recently, in July, still pretty fresh out.
Bro,
here.
so
Fresh out here.
I feel like I have to say this on air, right?
Okay.
When I was at your wedding, I was just crying, just bawling, right? Because never before have I met a man more worthy.
Wow. That's sweet.
Than you. Like, based off of, and I know that we're going to talk about it today, but like, based off what you had gone through.
Yeah.
The entire time that I was at your wedding, I kept repeating the words, "You're worthy." Yeah. You're worthy. Brenden, you're so worthy. You're worthy. And I just kept repeating it kind of like a mantra. Yeah. But I'm just so glad that you got married. Yeah. Like, I know a lot of people talk about it, but like, from what you have gone through. Right. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interject.
No, you're fine.
I'm like, maybe with you, I'll probably interject the most out of all my other guests, just because.
I'm fine with it. I love it so
much.
I love it, bro. I love it.
But yeah, if you continue your point on what life advice you'd give your inner child, or what life advice you'd give that young
shoot,
man?
bro. I think that I think and do we just mean in general, or like musically or something?
Right in front of you right now is your old self, is your younger self. What life advice would you give him?
Oh man, okay. I would say learn how to meditate. my life changed after I like learned how to purposefully think. After I learned how to spend time programming myself. I would say grow in your relationship with God early, because when you do, you learn about grace early. You learn how to have grace with yourself early. I think that I was like way too self-critical. I think that's also part of the reason that I don't have any music out, because a lot of the stuff that I made in my younger years, I just didn't enjoy, or I wasn't doing it for the right reasons. And with who I am now, I prefer to inspire more than I prefer to vent these days. Not to say that I don't still do both musically or creatively in different ways. And be patient, grow in the fruit of the Spirit, and that I would say if you're searching for meaning, you can find it in love, and to lean into it, to lean into your bonds, and let your passion for goodness drive you. Because I think sometimes we all try to find different fuel sources for our lives. Many people, I think, search for financial success. Many people, and they kind of treat life as like this video game in many ways, where they try to like level up. Other people, I think, want to live in a self-made sense of peace built out of a constant sense of gratification. And I think that I was never somebody who saw either of those things as being very meaningful. I think I was trying to find what was meaningful. And if I had to add one more, just to grow in self-belief to a level that helps others believe in you as well. And I think that like, I was trying to be humble. I was trying to be others first. I probably lost out on a lot of opportunities from not just like having a love for my own future, that comes with believing in myself. You know, when you grow in self-belief, you also grow in love for your future simultaneously.
Yeah.
And it's something that I have now, and it allows me to use that as my fuel source and be like, oh, okay, like I love the idea of the life I want to build. I love my family. I love the goodness that God can use me to build in the world. And of course, we all wish we knew those things sooner, but it's we're like diamonds, and we grow from these pressures. And so I'm still thankful for everything I did go through. The idea that I didn't have the answers back then, but that being said, I would love and still do love the opportunity to share the pieces of lessons that I've received with those who have saw something in me to seek them. And yeah, that would probably be about it. And I would probably just say, like, wear deodorant.
I gotcha. Wear deodorant. I love it.
Smelly little kid.
Nice.
Yeah, ripe.
Sour.
Sour boy. Yeah.
Sour Patch Kid.
Facts. Facts.
I wanted you to tell the story of your autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
And how you survived it.
Yeah. Yeah. In 2016, I was a very normal kid. I was about 18 years old and got a sense of shortness of breath that kind of lingered for a long time. Got diagnosed with bronchitis, didn't go away later on. Got a CT scan after, because I had just moved to Virginia from Ohio. And after getting a CT scan, after getting a primary care physician to get that all set up, they realized that I had something called interstitial lung disease, which is a very general name that has a lot of different classifications and types of interstitial lung disease. I did not know yet at the time that I had an autoimmune disease. It wasn't until the lung disease just kept getting worse, and I just kept, like, the ability to breathe just kept getting harder and harder. And doctors were kind of dragging their feet at the time, just trying to figure out, I guess, next steps, or they didn't think it was as bad as it actually was. But it got to a point where I just began to suffocate, and my mom just had to rush me to the hospital one day and be like, please help. Like, he's going to die if you don't. And so the only thing that would help at the time was I believe it's pronounced corticosteroid, prednisone, which a lot of people know about. Very popular medication. And because it's an anti-inflammatory medication and my lung disease was an inflammatory type of lung disease, the inflammation was just eating up my lungs, but we didn't know what the inflammation was being caused from. That was like the biggest mystery, was how I even got this disease. So the next steps were figuring out what kind of interstitial lung disease it was, and then figuring out what kind of, like, what may have been causing it. It's hypothesized oftentimes for people who have this kind of disease that it can be started by an autoimmune disease. And so after we got the ANA blood test back, I did show up positive for something called Sjogren's syndrome. And they hypothesized that may have been what caused the lung disease to form in the first place. And there is also thinking that there was many factors that probably made the lung disease show up, which could have been like environmental factors, with me probably having that autoimmune disease my whole life and not knowing it. Coming to Virginia the first time, I mean, you probably already know, like, pollen, bro. The pollen down here is different. Like, in Ohio, I was like, oh yeah, allergies, you know? But when I got down here, I was getting jumped by pollen. Like, I couldn't go outside. I was like sneezing up yellow out here. It's crazy. And so there could have been that environmental factor. There could have also been the fact that I was most likely allergic to a lot of the foods that I was eating. And other factors as well that could have been causing inflammation to continue sparking up in a way where it led to that diagnosis. And that is the beginning of that journey, and being diagnosed and being like, okay, let's figure out what the next steps are. With any diagnosis, for people who have never been diagnosed with something like severely or like something serious, it's strange because you realize how primitive the science is about a lot of treatments, diagnosis, how things actually work, where they come from. And it's a scary feeling because you're like, okay, is this lung disease going to come back? Is it going to flare up again? You know, all those thoughts pop into your head. And it's a strange feeling to get diagnosed and you're like, is there a life expectancy to this thing? And so on and so forth. But luckily, I got diagnosed in the modern age where we have such resources as Google. We have Facebook support groups, I was able to actually reach out to a lot of people and talk about their stories. And so that was a huge blessing. I can't imagine being diagnosed with this in the 90s and only having like 2 books to read. And a lot of the people that I talked to, that was their situation. And so there was a certain level of fortunates that I did receive from, okay, like I have resources to at least help me tackle this, to understand what I can do to combat it or to manage it, and so on and so forth. But autoimmune diseases, bro. I've almost become a bit of an advocate for people to make sure that they're getting checked the way that some people might say, like, go get checked for cancer or go get checked for these other things, because it can be dormant. It can show up randomly. If it's in your bloodline, it can be a hereditary thing. Autoimmune disease are cousins. It doesn't need to be the same autoimmune disease. If you know somebody in your family, like, go ask for an ANA blood test. That's ANA. Or go, talk to a primary care physician, because you might be allergic to certain foods you're eating, and that could, really change your life. You can, now it's perspective whether or not it's going to be for the better or worse, but there was a lot that I found to be a blessing through what I went through in perspective, but I can't run like I used to, and so there's a trade-off there. So I would definitely say, like, it's important for people to go get checked out for that. And that was kind of my journey into, like, the discovery of autoimmune disease.
I remember I was hearing you sing on stage, and I felt this sense of, not that I'm trying to pin you as this poster child of, like, oh my gosh, like, I need to be better, but we breathe air, second nature. We blink, second nature. So the fact that you had this ability kind of testing you and stripped from you to where I can't breathe. You're also a singer. You're a musician.
I am.
And so I just remember seeing you on stage one time, and I thought, wow, what a beautiful singer. And then getting to know you deeper, how air was so beautiful, not only to you, but in that moment, I got a sliver of how air was beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
And the way that you sing has this, like, soul and power, smooth like butter, but it's got this soul and power to it. And so when you told me that you at once had this near-death experience of you not being able to breathe, and just getting to know you deeper, and one of the big reasons why I say, like, wow, like, there's nobody more worthy to get married if that's what you want, to have kids if that's what you want.
Because it's really sweet, by the way.
Oh, I mean.
So sweet.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, you're awesome.
You're awesome. You're awesome. Okay.
No, you're awesome.
No, you. And there definitely have been times where I have thought about quitting.
Yeah.
That I'm reminded of you. I'm reminded of the struggle that you had just to breathe. So I think within that exists this modicum of a feeling brave even when I'm not. Because how did you have the courage to be brave in that dark period?
New life. My niece was being born in a kind of timeline that really aligned with the sickness that I was receiving. And in the climax of my sickness, after surgery, being extremely medicated, I did not know how much I was going to be affected. I hadn't seen, like, a new birth in my family in a long time, and this is my first time being an adult while witnessing birth. And It was my brother's child, you know, so it really hit home. Now, when there was like just a pregnancy present, I wasn't that inspired yet. My inspiration came more from, and my quote unquote bravery came more from my faith in God. Um, there's something weird about when you have a diagnosis that's like kind of killing you, and when you're given like options of routes your life is going to go that aren't in your hands, you're kind of forced to figure out how you're going to react, you know? There is no, I'm going to go pick this road. There is no, I'm going to go be an NBA player or something. Or you're not really thinking about your dreams. You're thinking about, am I going to die brave or not? And if I get a chance to live another few weeks, what do I want those weeks to look like? And time becomes really valuable, you know? I just remember being in the grocery store and like if a lane would shut down or something, I'll just walk out. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be here in a few weeks. I don't want to sit here in this line, you know? I'll go home and I'll eat another rice cake. It's fine. But I think that, yeah, a lot of it was, I think, just God being present in my life, putting the right people in my life, putting good support systems in my life, having loving parents in my life. And then the step further was sometimes you create motivation, sometimes you find it. I was creating it through trying to die gracefully, and through that living the best life I could, which was a lesson in itself. But once I watched my niece born and I understood a bit more of what human life and the experience is, I remember before she, like, I don't know, I would just call her like my hope, you know? I would just look at her and be like, wow, look at this. Like,
My hope.
I want to see, she was so cute. And I was like, I just want to see her tomorrow. And so going forward, it was like the next day, it's like, I want to see her tomorrow. I want to see her tomorrow. It was like one of my first mantras out of that season was like, I want to see her tomorrow. And just continuing to go through physical therapy, continuing to assess medicational needs, and reading a lot of good books, watching a lot of good sermons. Some of it in which, because my memory is so blurry from the time being medicated, I can't remember some of the things that I bumped into that really changed my life. I remember there was this TED Talk on hospice care that I watched like 3 times every day, about how suffering breeds appreciation. And trying to understand what was happening to me is like, I didn't really care to sing before like 2016. Like I had the talent, it was fun. It wasn't a privilege yet. You know, what a privilege is really dictated by perspective. And yeah, I just didn't have that mature perspective to see it. And so there was a lot of things that I felt God was pushing into my perspective and into my life and into my circumstances. And growing the perspective to see that God was doing it was also another kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be like the most Christian person you ever have in this podcast, because I'm just going to keep giving God the glory throughout. But yeah, honestly, just realizing so much, realizing like, oh, the bravery that I'm receiving is based off of the idea that I have a good God on my side who cares about me infinitely, who essentially died for me because he believed in me, and who calls me his son and calls me his friend, and uh, and a big thing was I still had a lot of passion in my heart. And as my passion grew, I felt like my purpose grew. And when I felt like I had purpose, I felt like I had drive. I was like, oh, okay, like I love sunlight. You know, I remember there was a time with on prednisone where I couldn't. It gave me sensory overloads, and I really couldn't see this like the sky very well without wearing like really heavy sunglasses. And there would be times when my eyes would just like start adjusting back into being able to see the sky clearly, bro. And we would be on drives, and I would just be crying. And my mom, who was driving at the time, probably thought this is the strangest thing, but it was also very beautiful because it taught me the meaning of suffering that was chosen for me, and it also taught me, oh, when I don't have this thing, I realize how valuable it actually is. So it taught me how to value things and how to start manufacturing that value a bit, which was ties back into that video about hospice care where he was talking about like, man, I wish I could remember his name. I'm sure if people look up the video, they can find it. But he was talking about how when suffering breeds perspective of appreciation, we can basically start to choose our suffering. And we should also give attention to appreciating our lives in a way that every day should be hospice. You know, we're all on our way out, you know, slowly sometimes, unexpectedly sometimes, but it's the reality.
I've kind of been living with that mentality of, so not to interject again, but just because the way that you have lived, I think stands testimony upon suffering. There is good that comes out of suffering. And I think that you would not be tested with suffering if you could not be pressurized into a diamond because of it. One of the things that I've definitely been repeating like a mantra in my head for sure is borrowed time. Borrowed time. Borrowed time.
Yeah.
Borrowed time. And that's definitely something in my head to where I realize that life is very short. I realize that life is also dynamic. Like in most martial arts, the activity itself is explosive. So it's not a marathon to where like you're moving out in sprints, and a marathon is just like super long term, whereas martial arts is like super explosive.
Yeah.
I recognize that life is like that too, where it's simultaneously both a marathon and also it has the roller coaster of ridiculousness.
It does.
And I think that you'd be a living testament of it, to where when the high was high, it was pretty great, but then when the low was low, and whatever test came your way, you know, it revealed your character. And we've had this discussion on mantra. What does mantra mean to you, and how has mantra affected your ability to propel yourself through life despite the hardships that you've encountered?
You know, despite how much I learned in that season, there was a lot of times where, I mean, I'd still, so like earlier I talked about intentional thinking. Mantra is the coding process to the computer that is our brains. Mantra allows me to build like Norton antivirus in my brain for when either intrusive thoughts pop up or feelings that are untrue pop up. That's a big one, is we all have feelings that are untrue. I've developed a lot of them now, and I've had good people in my corner who's also like the leadership at my church crosswalk. My pastors have, every time I have another conversation with them, they're like, well, you need to like reprogram your brain to think about this. And it's so funny because on my own time, I feel like I'm doing it so well. And so it's still so important to have people around you who are like giving you accurate perspective on when you're not, things, emotion clouds judgment. And sometimes we need that secondhand perspective to be able to check when we are thinking emotionally and think that we are thinking completely rationally. But even then, it's like the minute that I find that there is an irrational thinking, or the minute that I find that there is a hole in my thinking process or something that doesn't align with my goals, I can create a mantra to redirect my brain to start processing new information that allows me to do better in that direction. Mantra means so much to me because it is, especially in the last year and a half, has been huge in calming down anxiety. Anxiety is a real issue, especially in 2023. And I'm sure it will continue to be, especially because we live in a society. We live in a society where there's just like a constant sense of overstimulation present with phones and TVs, vehicles, the amount of mediums that there are. I mean, the amount of apps that there are on phones. The amount of information that we can intake, and the amount of helplessness that we feel daily. I mean, there's wars going on, and there's tragedies and all these things, and it's like, if you're an empath, you can start feeling overwhelmed from your own circumstances. You can start feeling really overwhelmed. Challenging what thoughts your feelings are giving you with perspectives, especially built in truth, is how you build a foundation of peace in your life. And that peace is going to be challenged every day. You have to rebuild it daily. And for me, that's also completely intertwined with my prayer life, my fasting life, my scripture life, my book reading life, consuming information and repetition has been, it feels like the cheat code almost. There was things that I was dealing with in my personal life based off of, I think, traumas, self-sabotaging behaviors that as many lessons I received through my lung disease, my autoimmune disease, my niece's birth, and all these things that I still had trouble shaking up until just maybe 2 years ago, and started to find meaningful progress, not because I wasn't doing the mantra thing back then, but it's sometimes you just have to let it sit. I think a lot of people expect, if I do a mantra every day for this amount of time, if I do it for like a month, I'm going to be okay. No, sometimes like you have really deep-rooted trauma. Sometimes you have really deep-rooted behaviors, or you have really deep-rooted pacifiers for stress-related circumstances. And what I found was, once I found my truths and what I really believed and what I really wanted, which is something that I coined as a foundation of motivation, it was a lot easier for me to build mantras around it that helped me recenter, refocus, and when taking that practice that, the Bible says to hide God's word in your heart, and I've seen some people, I believe like Dr. Miles Monroe is somebody that I studied a lot back in 2016. It was the first time that I started to notice making meaningful progress after following some of the sermons that I witnessed on YouTube about the reconstruction of one's mind, you know, being able to like figure out how I'm thinking, why I'm thinking, and therapy goes a long way in that too, right? Like therapy, and I'm doing therapy right now, and oh, that's the stuff. Therapy, bro. Yo, shout out to therapy, bro. Therapy is the stuff. It
Better
really,
help, please sponsor us.
follow our affiliate link. No, but yeah, just having like a perspective of, okay, this is how you're feeling. This is what you're doing. This is the direction that you need to be reprogramming because this is how you're thinking. And we're programmed whether we want to be programmed or not. We're all programmed, you know. We are all dealing with insecurities based off of experiences that we've been through. We don't go through childhood unscathed no matter how great our parents are. They're imperfect beings. There might have been one time that my dad said, I don't really like that song you made or something. He didn't say that, but like it's an example. And that sits with you. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe, like, you know, this person's not going to like it. They're not going to like it if he doesn't like it, you know. And that goes for everything. Everything that we do is still programming us. Every word that we consume is a seed and a little tattoo in our brain. And we need to figure out what we are feeding it. Is it nutrients? Is it poison? Is it candy? If you consume too much brain candy, you'll get brain cavities. Brain cavities probably look like
Brain fog.
Brain fog.
Yeah.
Yeah, brain fog. Yeah. So mantras are everything. It's the key to intentional thinking. It is. I mean, like you said, repetition is information. It's so important. It's really been the theme of the last 2 years of my life to talk about. Like if anyone's like, bro, like, do you have any advice? That's like the first thing I go to.
Mantra.
It's because it's the thing that I feel like has, you know, you want to bring people to a place that you've been. I can't bring them to places I haven't been. I can't talk to them about how to be immensely financially successful yet. I have people in my corner who are talking to me about it and teaching me. And so I do feel like there's a certain amount of knowledge that I have. But if there's anything that I'm doing really well right now, it's intentionally thinking, you know? And that goes for like, on the farther part of that is like, I really love Instagram's favorites tool right now. And things of that sort. There's something on YouTube called PocketTube that I use. That allows it's an extension for Google Chrome that allows me to put the channels that I subscribe to into categories so that I can control the media that I'm consuming, because algorithms figure out what you love and they just try to continue attacking your brain, getting that dopamine going.
Yeah.
And that's what leads to doom scrolling. Not that I've never done it.
I think in this current age,
everybody's got a good
everybody's done
doom scrolling, you know. That TikTok algo is crazy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they know what I want. You know, they got the cat videos.
Deadly,
you know,
bro.
if I stay on there for more than 5 minutes, bro, I'm knees deep in cat videos. I'm on my 27th message to my wife. Look at this one. You know, it's bad. It's bad. We really we really need to be careful. But mantras allow me to even like, okay, like I can create a mantra for that. The brain candy thing is a mantra of mine. You know, I don't want to get a cavity. Let me get out of here. So on and so forth, man. It's so important. And I feel really privileged to have had the conversations with you about it in the past, but to be able to talk about it on your podcast now, because I think it's just a lesson that's really beneficial to the people who are willing to listen. You know, it's something I feel like I know. It's like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
It's transformational.
But not everybody has a Brenden Rivera, you know.
Not everybody is a bow, man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I love the fact that the most hardened people, the most pressurized people, use mantras.
Yeah.
And sure, yeah, like you might not be in this phase of life to where you can give somebody life advice on how to make $1 million. That sounds great and everything. And I don't know what quote who it was written by, but in the face of death, watch everything become nothing. And in the face of life, watch nothing become something.
Yeah.
I don't know who wrote it, but
That's fire.
yeah, whoever wrote it, shout out to them. Might be like a Charles Bukowski quote or something. But in the face of loss and forced sacrifice, I think does it reveal the true content of character. Why do you sit outside in a cold place for 10-30 minutes in the bleak winter
Yeah.
to meditate?
That's really funny. First of all, it's funny you know that because not a lot of people know I do that. I don't even know if my wife knows I do that. Like,
I stalked you.
you saw me standing outside. So it goes back to the hospice thing. It goes back to the suffering thing. It goes back to the reason that I think God wants us to fast. Sometimes I feel like I'm fasting from heat, you know? Like,
from warmth, from comfort.
yeah. It's the same reason I think people take like ice baths and things.
Yeah.
It was kind of my version of it and the first thing that I did. And I'm developing more. I mean, nowadays, there's some times where I won't go back inside when it's hot to appreciate the AC in my house and so on and so forth. There's many different things I find that I'm doing that are real strange to the average Joe maybe. And they're like, this guy's weird, standing outside just sweating like that. But have you tried that yet at all? Have we had a winter since we've had that conversation? I don't know if we have.
So, it was actually in, I think, 2022 or so. There was a pretty bad snowstorm, and I remember doing push-ups, like in the snowstorm, because I was reminded of what you were doing, even if it was just sitting.
Yeah.
Of being. It was a practice, and I really wanted to record it, and like post it on TikTok and look really cool, right? Because doing push-ups in the snow is cool, like shirt off and everything.
It does look cool.
But I decided against it because I wanted to take it as a lesson.
Yeah.
So, like what we were talking about with the gift of air and the gift of being able to breathe, it reminded me of how beautiful warmth and comfort was. Because I decided to strip my I wasn't completely naked, right? Like, I'd probably go to jail.
Sure you weren't.
But took off the shirt, started doing push-ups. Why are you looking at me like that? Started doing push-ups in the winter, in the snow, in the sleet, in the freezing cold.
Yeah.
So I did attempt it. And what I did learn was that oftentimes I do take air for granted. I do take warmth and comfort for granted. These are first world problems, I think.
Yeah, they are.
And it was a good reminder that who are you to complain? Not you, but like asking an inner monologue of myself.
Thank you for the clarification. I was going to cry.
You're tougher than that, as is proven.
It's one of my mantras. Don't cry, please.
Don't cry. And it was a good reminder.
Yeah.
That the things I take for granted are the things that somebody 1,000,000 miles away, 1,000 miles away, would kill. Some people, I'm sure you had this thought, you would have killed for another 5 years when you thought that you were going to die.
Yeah.
You'd have killed for 5 more minutes at your worst. So it was a reminder that how blessed I am, but it was also a reminder of, you might look at this in a weird way, but I remembered thinking in that moment that I could do whatever it is that I set my mind to, and if I don't hit that goal, if I don't hit that mark, that just means my feet, my lungs, my hands were not up to the task. And that's the way that I was looking at it at the time. Yes, like everybody, including myself and you, dealing with insecurity, but that moment in the winter doing push-ups. I wasn't doing anything crazy. It was just a lot of push-ups. Was a reminder of what I take for granted. Yeah.
Comparative suffering I think a lot of people have a negative stigmatism with it, can be used as a tool for appreciation.
I think so too.
For sure. I remember the very first time that so there was like a small section of my childhood where we had a very old home, and when you have really old homes, sometimes you have pipe issues.
Yeah.
And I remember we had an issue with our pipes that led to an issue with our heat at some point, and there was just a little bit of time that we didn't have heat inside of the house. And I just remember thinking, like, my parents, you know, they were responsible, and they would take us to another person's house and things like that. But there was some times where me and my brothers was like, it's fine. Like, let's just stay here. Like, let's just camp it out. Let's figure it out, you know, challenge it. And when you see your breath inside of a house, it's a really strange sensation. Yeah. Because I remember I went through it not that long, but just thinking, like, once things started to get better for us, I still had friends who were living in those circumstances. They weren't getting the heat on, you know? And that also is still a piece of what sticks with me when I'm standing outside and it's freezing. Some people don't go inside, you know? And I'm trying to, I think, I've had conversations with some friends about how to grow in empathy. And I think feeling someone else's suffering in a meaningful way can also do that. And it's a privilege to feel someone else's suffering, if you're willing to view it as such. And it brings you to movement. Not the movement again. Oh no. I'm a what? A toilet. Anyways, and
Toilet breaker.
I'm a toilet breaker. But it really it gives you that perspective of, like, I just remember being outside and thinking, like, another 15 minutes, you know? And at the time, I'm also, like, psychotic listening to, like, the David Goggins and all that, you know, like, push yourself, motivational videos are all around me.
Carry the boat!
Yeah. and I'm like, no, another 15. And I just remember the longer I waited, the more I wanted to go inside. And the more I wanted to go inside, I knew the happier I would be when I got inside. And so I remember I did it, like, 30 minutes freezing, Don't get yourself sick, bundle up, but just sit in the snow, let your butt get cold. Someone else's.
Let your fingers numb.
Let your fingers numb a little bit.
Let your breath get shaky.
When you start feeling it in here, and you're like, oh, this really sucks. That's when I think that's where the growth comes from, right there, that level of discomfort, Sometimes I think inconvenience can make us, like, complacent, but suffering can make us appreciate. And knowing the difference is so important. And choosing the difference really takes a level of mental maturity, focus, love for your future, love for your present, love for your brain, your perspective, love for your loving ability, love for your empathy, love for your compassion, that I found a lot of little tricks to understand other people's suffering. And especially if, like, I want to care more about something, I'll try to find a way to, like, suffer similar to the thing I want to care about more too. That's something I do. Like,
give us an example.
Like, if you want to care more about homelessness, stay outside. Get bit by mosquitoes. I bet the next day you're gonna go drop off some supplies around town. You're gonna be like, this is the worst thing ever. You're gonna see a homeless person, you're gonna start crying because you're empathy. You're gonna be moved to emotion. The other half of that is my relationship with God, building the fruit of the Spirit, building compassion and love, good intention. But even Jesus himself didn't lack any level of suffering. very hard-working individual, brilliant mind when you read the scriptures of how he would address people by their potential and by their allowing them to go through hardships, understanding to build perspective in many ways. I mean, biblically, what fasting is let me put this down to replace it to honor God. And as you go through that process, you're starting to realize that, like after you're done fasting, there's a new appreciation for the thing that you put down, or you matured so much that you don't even need to pick it back up. Right, and that's like, I think that's like the highest level. There's certain things that I want to put down and never pick back up. That's like really important to me still. I would love to use social media even less than I do, and I don't use it that much currently. I would love to replace that with in-person communication a lot more. There's sometimes there might be something that makes it easier, the microwave example, and it's like, no, I want to do this the hard way. Someone's doing this the hard way. Someone has to do this the hard way, and I want to understand them, and that comes from the love that I have for God, the love God has for me, and the love that I have in overflow is, okay, now I want to build perspective. A great way to do that is missions trips. Understanding how much you take for granted. Being in the dirt, and I'm not speaking for my church. I know there's other churches who have been criticized in the past because of like the photo op missions trip, and then I go back to my cabin while you guys are all in your tents and those kinds of things. And we're not trying to like necessarily get anybody sick, so I'm not like making fun of those churches, those people, those organizations. They're doing awesome work. But I think that there is something very valuable to be housed from being in someone's soil, being in someone's dirt, being in someone's suffering, being in someone's hardship, and that goes for walk into the house of a person who's very depressed and see how messy it is. And when you have the correct perspective, you see how destructive that can be, and you move to action sometimes. There's a lot of people who don't want to be helped, and that's a whole nother discussion. That's just another podcast in itself. But having it's another form of mantra. It's physical mantra. Words are one medium, but we have taste, and we have touch, and we have sight. I have a lot of artwork that I'm putting up in my apartment right now because they're visual mantras. There's this art piece I want to purchase right now of like it's like a Jesus with the fish and the bread and the crowd, he's about to do the multiplication. And it's a reminder like, oh, this is about faith. It's not about sight. If I go by sight, there's not a lot of fish and bread. There's not going to be enough. If I go by faith, something's going to happen here. God's going to move on my behalf. And I think where faith and perspective intertwine sits in the heart of suffering because it breeds so much goodness. And I think the other side of that equation is, when your compassion does grow, when your empathy does grow, loving yourself enough to not be taken advantage of, figuring out that balance it can be very difficult. It's something that I've been trying to figure out myself. I was just talking to one of our pastors yesterday about that. Just like, am I giving the bricks away that I should be building my own house with? And just that leads to continuing to figure out what is the overflow, what is too much in the season, what is enough in the season, and also trying to figure out how to make my purpose, my passion, my talent, and my job all kind of sit in the same space. I think that there's a lot of happiness. Peace, maybe, is a better word to be found. Happiness is fleeting with moment to moment. Joy is more aware that and we've had that conversation. It's like something I prefer to use.
Yeah.
Because I think it's affiliated with the idea that I have a belief that things are going to be okay, despite how awful they might look. And yeah, I think that purposeful suffering is just as effective as a tool for mental transformation as repetitious information and repetitious suffering at that, right?
That's why people go to the gym.
That's why people go to the gym. Yeah, definitely. Of course, there are those interesting ones who, I don't know, they're just gym sickos, you know? I never understood them. I wanted to be it. They're just like, I'm here for the pumps, you know? And I'm like, oh, yo, chill, dog. Shout out to all the gym bros who
Shout out to all the gym bros.
are addicted to the grind.
So I can't be a gym bro because I'm like too focused on the media company. But yeah, man. Like,
I don't know. I feel like
weird.
you're at least 50% gym bro right now. You know?
Yeah.
Like-
Because like I'm trying to get back into the military habit of
Yeah.
going to the gym like at 5 a.m. again.
Yeah.
But then I realized that means that I'd have to go to sleep at like 9 or 10.
That was my next question. Is like, what happens to sleep at that point?
You know, so when I was in the military, I always had insomnia.
Yeah.
I was always sleeping for only 4 or 5 hours. So I'd show up to training, like Muay Thai training, or I'd
Yeah.
show up to the gym just tired. So I wouldn't take pre-workout. I would skip rope for 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
I'm actually not the biggest fan of cardio, even though I guess I do cardio for fun.
Yeah.
And those 15 minutes of just intense, like, I'm sleeping, I'm awake, I'm sleeping, like kind of going in and out of micro sleep while I'm skipping rope was kind
Yeah.
of an interesting concept. But I've done it before in the military, where like all military veterans or all active duty personnel right now who have gone through boot camp can attest that it's such a weird feeling to fall asleep marching, but you just do because you're that exhausted.
Yeah.
I think the longest I've actually ever been without sleep has been I think 3 days.
Yeah.
3 days, maybe 4.
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
4 gets crazy, bro.
Well, 4
Start to
was-
get those hallucinations. You know?
4 I was hallucinating.
Yeah,
I think. Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember looking at my hands and thinking there was a piece of bread, and I'd like start, and I was like, oh, there's nothing there. And this is all just from
You were in the Hunger Games, man.
Man, I wasn't in the Hunger Games, but I was in the Hungry Games. Yeah, bro, it was
That's
crazy.
intense.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
So, but I do agree with all the points that suffering causes growth. And sometimes in order to grow, you must suffer. And it's the inverse of choosing your hard. I think a lot of people don't choose their hard. When I had my podcast with Coach Chase, his moniker is The Weapon Walden. He told me a quote that I don't think I'll ever forget. And it was by Charles Bukowski. He said, find what you love and let it kill you. So currently I think I know what it is. But at the end of the day, finding what you love and letting it kill you, I think, also falls in line with the ikigai, if you know what that is.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about reminds me of just ikigai.
Yeah.
And I think after giving up the multiple 6-figure salary offers from like sales, talent acquisition, or whatever, I'm finding that ikigai and realizing that it's not just about, don't get me wrong, like I would love to invest in more real estate. I would love to acquisition more wealth, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the wealth was never just for wealth. The wealth was time. And whenever we have conversations, podcast or no, I'm always reminded of the treasure of time.
Yeah.
And yeah, bro, I mean, I feel like I kind of went off on like a little tangent just now, a little bit, but
That was so good.
thanks, bro.
That's podcast gold.
You think so?
Yeah.
Hey, bro. I appreciate it. I think your podcast gold though too, just because
Yeah.
like I'm a little sad that you don't have one yet.
Yeah.
I say yet because I feel like you're just gonna start one of them.
Yeah, you think so?
I think so.
It's being discussed in my household. It is being planned. It's hard because I love talking to people just as much as I love making music sometimes. The experience of it, the follow through of
It's
it.
tough to be a creative.
It's tough
know?
to be creative, especially when you have multiple creative
interests. Yeah.
Like I want to make music videos for people really badly.
But then that means you can't make music for yourself.
Yeah, for those seasons.
Yeah.
Essentially, I have to choose which one is kind of going to happen because time is time. And I'm okay with that. I think I would someday more than I would ever want to be a musician would love to be a record label owner.
Mhm.
Like my passion is people more than it's just my product. And I'm more passionate about teaching sometimes than I am about anything else.
Mhm.
I'm still learning so I can do the teaching.
You're right.
And that's a rough place to be when you have passion and you just want to be out there. And I also was finding myself in a lot of ways. I was finding my own creative desires in a lot of ways. I had a lot going on at home. Life happens. I have a father who has Parkinson's disease and a niece who has diabetes, a mother who's in college. And when you have like these things going on around you, you're just trying to figure out how you can help. Obviously, I'm Hispanic, family is everything. There's been plenty of times I feel like I've had a lot of people in my life who haven't understood it, and they're like, yo, chill, and that goes back into like that overflow thing, like
And perspective.
and perspective.
Yeah.
There was times where I was joyous to give those bricks away of my own house to see built in theirs. If I have to have tinier property because of it, then so be it. I felt like I was really investing into their lives and kingdom, and I'm proud of that. And in this season now, I am working on some music. I would love to start a podcast. I don't think I think it'll happen.
I know it will.
I think it'll
It's
happen.
not even a thought, my friend.
I care about it too much maybe for it not to happen.
Mhm.
I've been giving it enough attention
Mhm.
and time and thought for it's making meaningful progress, especially on paper. I have a microphone.
So you've been watering it already.
I've been watering it, but you know what it is? I think I get afraid to talk about things I'm working on
Why?
because I want to show people what I made.
Not the process.
Yeah. I don't,
Okay.
I
gotcha.
would love to show the process after it's made. So maybe I'm just getting a little bit flustered and insecure now talking about it because I do deeply care about it.
We've had this discussion before, though, because we've always talked about how I'm a fan of the failure process.
Yeah.
And how because
And you're a fan of me, you know what I mean?
No. Stop. Stop.
Sorry, self-deprecating humor.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry.
Self-sabotage. The self-gaslight.
I'm joking.
And yeah, man, I mean, it's the fact that I think there's polarity, and I think this is why
Yeah.
we're as close as we are, where
Yeah.
it's like you have and I know that you can, like, once the idea is made and it's fleshed out, bam, it's just there. I'm just more proud of the showing and the execution, as I care less about the final product. Actually, I'd even argue that I think I'd be happier now, like with the 50, 60 views that I get on YouTube, with like the 30-something subscribers that I have now currently. I'm happier with this now because what you are good at, you become a slave to.
Yeah.
And that's something that I recognize too, that if I truly love this, I'll be shackled to it. Like the
Yeah.
greatest martial arts champions or coaches are shackled to it. There's no looking back. There's no becoming an accountant or a software engineer once you stick with it.
Yeah.
And it's choosing the heart.
Yeah.
It's choosing the heart. So
It is.
it just goes full circle back to
Yeah.
that.
But that being said, when I have a podcast, you'll definitely be on it.
What an honor.
And I'll get to ask you all the questions.
Yeah.
And because I have plenty, always do every time.
I mean, you can ask me questions now. You know,
Yeah.
like, I don't mind. Yeah, actually, we're approaching closing time already, which is crazy. So
Yeah.
if you want to ask me questions, go for it.
I do want to ask you questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Actually,
Go for it. Shoot.
what do you feel has been the emotions you've had now that you are? What episode is this that you've recorded?
I'm not gonna lie. So this entire week I've just been booked.
Yeah.
From Monday and Saturday I have like an actual video commercial shoot. So
Yeah.
that's not a podcast. But from the remote podcast that I've shot and the in-person podcast, I think you might actually be episode 12.
Yeah.
Maybe 13.
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
We had the conversation about your ideas for this podcast, the forming of this podcast, what the name of this podcast would be.
Not even a year ago.
Not even a year ago.
Yeah.
And here we are. We're sitting here. You
Yeah.
did this. I'm proud of you, first of all. I'm very proud of
Thank you.
You're doing
Thank you.
great.
Thank you for that. information.
And if you don't tell it to yourself enough, then shame on you.
I
Tell it
don't.
to yourself more.
I don't. And I
Put
think
it on your wall.
It's you're right.
Mantra it.
You're right. And I think it's it goes back to that conversation we had when we first met, where how I see myself in the mirror is that
Yeah.
body dysmorphia, super fat, chunky kid
Yeah.
who has a huge chip on his shoulder that has to prove everything,
Mm.
but is willing to suffer in silence and is willing to execute in failure despite the naysaying,
Yeah.
because I'm going to die in like the next, if I'm blessed, in the next 80 years.
Yeah.
Right? But that's just how I've always saw life.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's because like it's how when Hanson passed away, it was like that instant mental trigger where I was like, this is life. Like life is made for suffering.
Loss changes the
Yeah.
brain so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, maybe it's a result of trauma that
Yeah.
I instead of it being a desire to, it becomes a forced reaction to.
Yeah.
But your question was, what are the emotions I'm feeling now?
What are the emotions that you're feeling now that we've gotten to episode 12? You're hanging out with your friend, you're podcasting it up, you are actively practicing something that was merely an idea. Has there been challenges that you didn't see coming that have created emotions? Has there been payout emotionally that was everything you hoped it would be? I mean, what's been going on?
I'm getting everything that I prayed for.
Yeah.
And so the fact that I prayed for the hour and a half long conversations with strangers or with industry professionals or with people who were that much far ahead of me. Like just recently I had the MapQuest founder on a remote podcast.
Yeah, you did.
The fact that I had
That's sick.
the founder of MapQuest and when I was using his product when like, I don't know, I was like 7 to 10 using his product, never would I had ever thought that I'd be podcasting.
Yeah.
And him asking me advice for certain things.
That's so chippy.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
I got to work with my childhood YouTube crush, Happy Slip. And
Yeah.
and she was saying that, thank you.
It's epic.
She was saying that she even wanted to hop on the podcast.
Yeah.
And so that just breeds more opportunity.
Yeah.
So, but it's all an attempt to realize that I'm still that body dysmorphia kid
Yeah.
who wants to execute despite failure, who wants to execute pushing past the perfectionist mindset, the lighthouse paradox, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
And to just continue to be humble. I do recognize that I need to be more steeped in self-affirmation because I won't lie to you. when I first got to Assembly in this beautiful office, I went to a founder's party. Astoria Agency, Have a Good Day Studio. His name is Justin Colosito. He's the owner of Cherry Media. I'm sorry, not Cherry Media, of Clarity Media.
Mm-hmm.
They were all so far ahead of me that it broke my heart.
Yeah.
And I questioned myself, what am I doing here? Like, what is the point?
Yeah.
Why am I even here? All the lions are already here. I'm just a cub.
Yeah.
What is a cub gonna do in the face of these roaring lions?
Yeah.
And it was them turning to me, saying, "Hey, don't you do the podcast? Hey, like it's nice to finally meet you in person." And that gave me the confidence and the affirmation that in this world, it's not everybody trying to eat everybody. It's collaboration.
Yeah.
And it made me proud because during my military days, when I was venting to you and the stress that I had, this was everything I wanted, and now I'm getting it. But in order for me to continue being worthy of this, I have to execute, and I have to attempt, and I just have to do. Alex Hormozy coins the term, the work just needs doing.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, sometimes I find myself waking up at like 6 a.m. instead of 4. And I'll be harsh on myself for that. But why? You know, like it's not waking up at 4 that counts. It's the waking up at 6 and how productive your 6 to 8 p.m. or 6 to 9 p.m. or 6 to 10 p.m. looks like.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to give I've been trying to give myself more grace on that part. But emotions are mixed. Proud. I realize that I still have a long way to go. I'm taking this actually came from you. I'm taking your advice on to where if I have to give up my media company, I'm going to continue podcasting for a minimum 7 years. And the only reason I think I would stop is if I just either get lazy, which I hope I don't get that lazy to where I completely neglect what I set out to do, what I said I was going to do.
Which we don't think will happen.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And second, I die before 7 years, which is possible.
Of course.
So that's how I feel. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
That's really cool. Has there been was there like a surreal moment? And if so, was that the podcast with the founder of MapQuest?
No.
If not,
No.
what was the surreal moment?
So
And if there wasn't one, that's fine too.
there wasn't one for starting the media company
Yeah.
or the podcast because I've already had this experience once. It was the moment, I think, when I saw my best friend in the casket. Just yellowed, jaundiced, did not look like my friend. And I realized that at a moment's notice, I could be in that casket too.
Tomorrow isn't promised.
The world is not promised.
Yeah.
Not tomorrow, not next week. So I think because of that experience, I realized that everything I do is a result of effort or laziness. So every action has its equal opposite reaction. Every action has its consequence. Consequence does not necessarily constitute a negative connotation.
Yeah.
And that's the way I look at it, to where if I do and execute, I might fail, but then I learn.
Yeah.
I might do and execute and might succeed. I just chase the next objective.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no real surreal. More like milestones. Actually, what's kind of crazy is one of the milestones I had, and I'm glad I hit it early, was to have you on.
Yeah.
Because for somebody that has profoundly affected me the way that you have, in the way that you had lived and continue to live now, I mean, who wouldn't be moved? Who wouldn't be moved by witnessing how beautiful air could be?
Yeah.
Alone. As a building block foundation.
Shout out to air, bro.
Shout out to air.
That's the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
Air is good.
But that's my answer to that.
That's
question.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It's always surreal anytime I First of all, before I go forward with any other thought, just thank you for seeing so much in me as a friend. I see just as much in you. I've been
Thanks, brother.
just as inspired watching everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Watching you chase your dreams, watching you just killing it out here. I can't say how many people I look at with a sense of sadness, knowing that they could be chasing things the way that you are right now, you know, especially when they care deeply about it. A lot of people just don't think maybe their passions are worth the time or the energy or
The sacrifice.
the sacrifice, bro.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of sacrifice. There's so much going on behind the scenes just to be able to sit here in this room on 2 microphones
Yeah.
to chat with, you know,
Yeah.
anybody. It takes so much.
It's definitely something that we've talked about offline, but even like being in like the season of singleness,
Yeah.
that's like one of the big, it's not only the financial, it's the relationship.
Yeah.
And even before this, like the building blocks of it, even like sometimes like with my gym mates,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like being a part of the like Shift Combat Sports team, just
Yeah.
even on the media side,
Yeah.
there was a point in time where I wanted to fight for Coach Adam, and I
Mhm.
wanted to be a pro again. Or
Yeah.
I can't say pro again. Like I wanted to compete again in hopes of getting a medal or a belt to
Okay.
prove that I was still a warrior,
Yeah.
right? And I realized that if I did want to attempt this media stuff with the heart of intensity like I would pursue martial arts,
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice doesn't even come into the word. It's relinquish.
Mm-hmm.
I had to relinquish one for the other, and I found that, yeah, like this was one of them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like, do I still think that I could compete? And because there are like some old fighters out there, yeah, but you know, based off my genetic predisposition to like I'm 5'6" Filipino kid, I do have like quite a bit of muscle and stuff too.
Yeah, I wouldn't
but
mess with you.
Thanks, bro. I try to be as gentle as I can, as humble as I can.
Yeah.
But it's also realizing that life is so short that if you want to be the best at something, you have to put in the time for what. And I told myself that it's okay for me to be decent at like Muay Thai or martial arts, to be mediocre if it means that I could chase this.
Figuring out that's a
And be-
good thought. Figuring out what you need to be mediocre in order to excel at the thing that you really choose.
It was such a hard decision.
That's a hard decision.
It was such a hard decision. And once I realized that that's just how it had to be, and not that I'm saying that I couldn't, not that I couldn't just drop the company and then go train full time,
Yeah.
but is that what's in my heart?
Mhm.
And yeah, that was a hard decision for sure. Yeah, bro. We are approaching the time steadily, unfortunately. Definitely want you back for a second one,
For sure.
or whenever it is that you start yours. I'd love to be on yours.
Absolutely.
But do you have any closing thoughts or closing? Well, you gave me 2 closing questions, so yeah. Any closing thoughts? Comments?
Shoot, bro. I'm honored to be on here.
It is an honor to host you.
With some of the people that you've had on here, I don't necessarily, I'm not some guru or financially successful, I'm a friend and it's an honor to be on this podcast as a friend. I wouldn't want it any other way, even if I was
A guru.
a guru. I'd only want to be on here as a friend. And even if I ever become a guru, which I probably won't, I'd still want to be. I'd still want to be on here as a friend. So thank you. I appreciate you. I love what you're doing. I'm going to support it in every way I can.
Thank you.
I got to listen to a few episodes of this podcast as they were coming out. I got to listen to some more yesterday as I was nervous to be on here now.
Give me a live critique. How was it? Was it as nerve-wracking as you might have been thinking it was?
Yeah, bro. When you started making fun of me about my,
I'm sorry.
that really messed me up. You know.
I'm sorry, bro.
I'm just trying to give a sound clip to like make you sound bad. I don't know. Stir up the pot a little bit. I don't know. Create some clickbait like I was talking about earlier. Get the people going. You know. No, honestly, it was awesome. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
I think I've said pretty much all I need to say. God is good. Drink water. Drink a lot of water.
Please, bro.
Anybody who's listening to this,
We're hydro
if
homies,
you've
man.
made it-
Me
we
and
are
Brenden are hydro homies.
homies,
Drink water,
bro.
please.
if you've made it this far into the podcast, I think like drink water, brush your teeth, pray, put some words on your wall, read some affirmations in the morning.
Yeah.
Take some time to think about your future. Journal.
Agreed.
Go for a walk. The leaves are so pretty.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah. And if anyone's listening to this at another time of year, maybe the leaves aren't pretty. Maybe it's the middle of the winter, but something is. Something is pretty. Find it. Appreciate it. And yeah, bro, I appreciate you. I love you. I thank you. You're awesome.
I appreciate you, and I love you more. So, well, with that being said, brother, guys, thank you again for tuning into Auxano. We are with an awesome soul, Brenden Rivera. And as always, my friends, be well and walk tall. Thank you guys for tuning in again.
Can I get the last word?
Yeah, go for
I can get the last word?
it. Yeah.
The last word. I love you more. That's a W. That's a W.